All right, Joe's gone on the break, so let's just go ahead and put the original Xbox in
See how long it takes for him to notice. See how long it takes for him to notice.
Just not tell him. Yep, we are. Yeah. All right, so we all good to go?
So I'm, yeah. Hang on a second. I'm just full screening the page.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that there then?
The Atari, it's an S tier because that's where you wanted it.
Yeah, I agree. Why is the Xbox in shit?
All right, so the SNES. That's the next one.
Oh man. Oh man.
Joe just sipping his coffee.
Someone better have some fucking answers soon, all right? That's all I'm gonna say.
we put it there as a joke. We wanted to see how long it would take you to notice.
Yeah, you're right. You did. It was a fucking joke and all.
All right, so SNES.
Man, this is an S.
It is an S.
It's an S tier console. This is the most, maybe the most S worthy thing. I don't know though. We'll be talking it through. Mm-hmm. This is instant S.
Say as far as it's definitely an S tier for me, but I'm trying to figure out because on a personal level, it would be the top of S tier so far, because I like it more than the NES and the Atari.
Yep.
But okay. Do I put it above them or below them? Because as amazing of a console as I truly think it is, did it have quite an impact like those two did? Which I don't think that it did.
Well, you'd have to argue why impact is desirable for the list.
That's true.
Impact is greater when you consider the games library.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I feel like ultimately, to me, the most important thing about these lists is like the experience of the system. So like the games is always going to be the first thing that stands out, and the controller, the start-up intro. As silly as that is, things like this make these types of systems. You know,
well, I think of this gen, I think the SNES controller is the best of them in my opinion.
I've not used it. I don't think I've ever used one. I've used a Mega Drive controller.
Wow.
I've never used a SNES controller. Incidentally, I have, just to put this on the record, very little experience with this system. I always leaned more Mega Drive whenever I sort of went. If I wanted some 16-bit stuff, I was definitely more drawn to the Mega Drive. And I feel like the SNES was big over here. It was the first one to kind of peak big over here. So like when I would speak to older people who were playing games, they would mention the SNES. But even still, I feel like there was more of a love for the Mega Drive, and I always feel that. However, I can't argue that it does seem to have a really good game library, and people vouch for the controller, and it's probably the most popular in terms of retro gaming a system has ever got.
I'm trying to think. What were the sales of the mini consoles? Because I know in like actual sales numbers, the NES outsold the SNES, but like what would the mini consoles I think would be a better representation of how people view the two today, maybe,
but they did limit those original NES minis. You've got to remember this.
That's true.
I don't know. I know what you mean. You're kind of like viewing like to what extent people are interested in these systems. And maybe you can get something from those numbers.
Because I think like interest in a console upon release and interest in it down the line are two very different situations.
Millions.
I'm pretty sure this is another one of those games as well, and I know that this has been mentioned for a lot of these systems, but still gets games. Like people, there's like this community that still pushes is one of those. And there's been quite a few of them. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of the systems in B and above have had aftercare of that extent, at least quite a bit. We've actually managed to pick out pretty much everyone that did.
Yeah.
And that clearly seems to be factoring into our opinions to some extent somehow. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I keep piping up about systems. I don't really know that much.
Well, we brought you along for your opinion on it, so.
Yeah, and I think it looks really good. To be honest with you, I think I again, I don't have that personal experience, but like, I mean, is it S? Is basically what I'm asking, because from you guys, you might know this better than me.
No question.
I absolutely love the SNES. 100%.
Okay.
It is also the first console I ever played, like home console I played. It wasn't like when I first really got into gaming, but it was the first console I played.
There you go then. That stays with you.
Yeah, exactly. So like I was kind of putting that out there as like that's like keep that in mind with it, but the games library on it is absolutely amazing as well.
The mainstays of Mario, Zelda, and Metroid and Kirby, they're huge in like popularity and classic and masterfulness started here, the Super Nintendo, as far as I'm concerned. With Super Mario World, Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Kirby Superstar. Like, one of the greatest games ever on the face of the planet, to me, Super Mario RPG.
It's a fantastic
game.
The big
masterpieces of Final Fantasy VI, aka 3. And Chrono Trigger, which is many people's favorite game. When they just want to... Like, it's just knee-jerk reaction for some people. You ask them what's one of the greatest games ever made, they'll say Chrono Trigger. That was here.
Yep.
And so many more. And really unique ideas. Not that the exercise bike sold a lot, but then you had the first use of like a sensor bar, since we equated guns in that older Atari console with the Super Scope. I wish I had one of those.
I've got one.
That is amazing. I hope to get one of those someday.
I don't have a SNES, but I've got one of the Super Scopes.
Well, wait a second. You have a scope and you don't have a Super Nintendo. Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right.
Well, I want one. And then, like, the Satellaview, too. So bonkers and weird. I didn't hear of it back then. But, like, I mean, some of these dabbled with online stuff, but that was like an official Nintendo thing there.
They're definitely very feature thinking for it. I think another point in its favor as well is this basically was the apex of like, essentially it was the apex of 2D gaming. You could argue some indie games have like brought it to that level, but like this was the system that I feel like still stood the test of time. Like if you want a really good 2D system, like to this day, you can't really go wrong.
I absolutely see where you're coming from with that.
Like, is like if I was like, if I really like, if I'm like, oh, I want to go for the pinnacle of 2D gaming, it probably would be the one that I'd go for of anything else, like in terms of just iconic games that you know have stood the test of time.
Yeah, no, it definitely stands on its own even in modern times as far as like graphics go.
Yeah, I agree.
So S tier it is. All right. Game Gear.
Wow. What games do I want to go and play on the Game Gear?
The question is, how long do you want to play them? Because if you say anything more than like 3 hours, you can't.
Yeah.
Or you're buying another 6 AA batteries.
What was weird is I was at a hotel with my family back in the day, and you were able to rent a Game Gear. So that was like the one time I got to play one, and it was some Sonic game on there that I can't recall.
That's literally my opinion on the library.
Some Sonic game.
Sonic game. You know what I'm even more interested in? The Game Gear is it had a TV tuner. So I would use the Game Gear to play other consoles. You could connect another console up to the Game Gear and use the Game Gear screen to play another game off.
Wait. What?
A television tuner. So people like it'd have an antenna so people could pick up like public access TV via an antenna. But it had AV ports.
Wait.
or an AV port. I forget exactly.
So you plug another game console into
Yeah, you
the...
could plug in
What?
whatever, but I would do
Whatever
that.
you
That's what I
wanted.
would do.
What, like even if you got the right cables, you could plug in the Switch? You mean I could
With
play Switch
with
outside?
adapters, yeah.
You can play the Switch
Yeah,
on the
dude,
go.
we can probably play the Switch outside.
He's just like probably picked a shit example with that.
Yeah, no, that
Well,
was not the
I mean,
best.
it would have to be docked, and you would still have to plug it in. You'd have all these logistics, but yes,
Yeah,
you
but
could
you'd be
technically do it. I can finally play it docked outside. Well, that's how you can play Smash with GameCube
shadowing,
controllers.
but
You can
yeah,
play Smash with GameCube controllers outside.
yeah.
Oh,
That aren't the
wow.
wireless third-party things.
Hmm.
Use
That's-
actual GameCube plugged in.
S tier.
Honestly,
John?
on
S tier.
S tier. You can play the Switch on the go with it. S tier.
Dude, but you acted like you didn't even know about the TV tuner before I told you.
No, I don't know about it.
I didn't know
Like,
anything about that.
That has blown my mind. I thought you meant like when you were on about like the RF stick. I thought you meant like you could play the TV for it or something. I was like, well, that's still pretty nuts. That is crazy. I never knew that. What? But that's changed everything. This could become hand. Is it any good? I mean, this could handheld anything.
The screen's not that great.
No. I mean, it's going to ghost like a lot.
It ghosts
And I'm-
like crazy as you play. It's not full aspect ratio, from if I remember right. Like it has the same issue the Game Boy had when it came to like porting games that were like Sonic. Like you're zoomed way in on games and stuff, making it a little harder to do. On top of the ghosting.
Yeah, no, I've played the. I think I have on one of it must be one of the collections. I have played some Game Gear games on one of those like Sonic collections. That's basically it of what I've played of it though.
Mm-hmm.
If that sucks, now I'm assuming you can't use the buttons for it as well. That's still kind of blown my mind. I'll be honest with you. I like that's complete.
As cool as that feature is, you got to keep in mind you
agree.
can only do it for about 3 hours.
No, I agree. I don't think it makes the system any better, but that's just blown my mind in a weird part of like my obsessive brain with these types of weird novelties in gaming history. I love the sound of that. It sounds.
Oh
really
yeah, I'm
cool.
right there with you because I did not know that myself.
But like, I don't. I mean, it's C, right? It doesn't completely suck like the rest of them, unless it does that I don't know about. But it's not in the same. It's not a B, is it?
Yeah, no, I'd put it like right there with the links. Honestly, maybe right above the links. But
I like this.
you're good with C.
Yes.
Alrighty.
One more thing I'll say about the Game Gear, since I was happy to drop obscure video game knowledge whenever I can. I don't have a real desire to play any Game Gear games or whatever, but someday I think it would be neat for the theme of what I do and my namesake on YouTube. There is a Coca-Cola themed Game Gear, and that would be a neat thing to have on the shelf. It's red. It says Coke.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I really wish that one day Sega would release a Game Gear Mini that actually wasn't smaller than your pinky finger.
Oh, okay, right.
And have more than like 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
Isn't it like 2 games each, and it's like 4 systems?
It's
like
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I think they said like you'd spend around $400 total or something if you wanted.
Yeah, not doing that.
That's ridiculous. Sega.
Not doing that.
No,
Alright.
it goes more like Sega.
Sega. All right, Atari Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Yeah, I don't really know, boys. To be honest with you,
I can't speak into this.
it seems like it fucking sucks.
I was gonna say the controller's trash. That's all I know about it. I've held a
It
controller.
plays Doom.
to me, yeah, the controller, the library of games that for the most part aren't spoken about isn't like Tempest basically the best game on it.
Yes.
That's like considered the Mario 64. That says enough for me to be able to quite comfortably put it in D. Because just is there anything? Why would you want to play this other than out of complete curiosity? Like it's there with like the kind of like the CDI, the the 3DO. It's one of those systems where it's so infamous. Its name kind of reaches more, it's more known for being shit than it is for being a system back in the day. It's more known retroactively as like, oh yeah, what a joke. That's basically what it is. It's I don't know. Maybe it was a joke on launch, but it has become.
Yeah, it was a joke on launch.
It's become a meme since. Like it's. I feel like. I mean, I don't want to play it. That says something.
That says a lot. I mean, I think it's a console that wasn't even in its time. It was like when it first came out, it was really cool. It was mind blowing, and then immediately the next year it was pushed away to the side where nobody wanted it because it was just it lost everything it had. Its whole like wow 3D just kind of went away because other better consoles came out.
Basically.
Yeah, so Tempest, Iron Soldier.
I saw Bubsy in there, and I'm scared it's like an original
Alien
Bubsy. I'm not
Predator,
too sure.
And the original 2D Rayman are the big games on that system. Only two of these games I know of.
I have an internet friend that likes putting me through the Bubsy games.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm scared that this is an original Bubsy. I don't know Bubsy 2 well enough.
Does it say what year it came out?
Oh, I would have to look it up here again.
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember an Atari Jaguar exclusive Bubsy game.
Neither do I. I think Bubsy
maybe
2
it's
I think
just
was
a port of 2?
Genesis.
Okay.
All right, so what would we say for this one? D tier? Because I can agree with D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D tier it is.
Or, very bottom, where some stuff belongs.
Whoa.
Yeah, I agree with you. There is just one I really, really hate. like there's one. As far as I'm aware, the rest of these systems, to a degree, work. They kind of do what they say, just they're not very good. But there's one of them that is so. I don't think there's any redeeming fun to be had in it. So that's just where I stand. If you want to start chucking stuff in shits, I'm down to start talking.
Here we go. Joe hates. There we go. We just added a new
special.
Tier. So let's just start let's huck everything down from shits.
No, not all of it. I reckon
Odyssey can stay up there.
And Pong. Odyssey and Pong one
Odyssey
above because they're inoffensive if nothing else. Those
That's
three
true.
though I think are actively ones that I think are bad. The ones just above are like kind of inoffensive. The ones in D are just noteworthy enough where like there's at least something kind of like pulling you in it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's at least something there that I'd be like, oh okay, cool. Even though I think Pong should be higher, but I'm not going back
Pong
to
the game itself, yes, but all right, there we go. We've started putting things in shits.
Okay,
Next one, the Saturn.
Now this is special for me personally. You guys, I'll never have a thrift store find like this again, but I like to pop into thrift stores every now and then. I love looking through the games. You just get cool stuff every now and then. And admittedly, those that might not know, I have a large closet full of Hawaiian shirts. Gotta say, that's where I get the majority of them, from a thrift store. I round the corner, and I nearly started crying. There it was, sitting on the shelf, a Sega Saturn with the power cable, just with like next to a waffle iron and like a wired-in phone. It's like in between those. I freaked out. I paid $10 for this Sega Saturn.
Fucking hell!
I was so. When was this?
Yeah.
Maybe about 2 years ago.
Jesus, $10?
Because, about 2 years ago.
That's mad. Lucky.
I was so scared of it not working, and due to finances at the time, this needed a controller and needed the AV cables.
Mm-hmm.
I like put it off for like a year because I was also scared of like testing it to make sure it even worked. It had the power cable, but I was gonna wait to turn it on until after I had everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was only earlier this year that I'm like, okay, now's the time. I got everything I need to get this going, and it worked. It's a miracle.
I think
You
that's a
cannot put
sixth
stuff like
gen
that
tier
off.
story.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I love the Saturn. I don't even at the moment yet own that many games for it.
Mm-hmm.
I what it is. There is something about the system that, and this is potentially completely pretentious bullshit that I'm now about to spew, but there is something about this system that draws me in. Like, I think it's fine where it is, because I've not extensively played it or its library, in particular its Japanese exclusives, which was a reason in itself to own the system. But
Most of the games are stuck in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get
yeah,
a ton of stuff in the
yeah,
States.
I was gonna say I knew people who when the Saturn was out, they were importing stuff from
Yeah,
Japan at the time, and it was like the way to get the good games.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Um, and it is now quite expensive to kind of like go for, I suppose.
yes.
Yeah, no, the
But
Saturn,
no,
anything Saturn is just up in price now.
but like there's again, I think I don't know, it's just fun and cool, and I don't think I need any other explanation why I like it other than it's fun and cool, and
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't have enough games for it, and I wish I could play it more. I suppose I could, but I, you know, I have RF cables for it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
fuck that.
mine's brought up to kind of some modern standards. It's not
Okay.
original stuff with it. I have a brawler controller for it, like a really nice third
Oh,
party thing.
is
It's
that
an
like
HDMI out.
is that the 6-button one, the brawler? What do you mean?
Oh, I wish it was a 6-button one. It's a 3-button. But
Or like a control?
Brawler's like this company that's doing this with like Dreamcast and 64. They make stuff
Oh.
that's like, you know, kind of the Xbox shape, except it has like OG buttons and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and built-in 3D controller compatibility, and
Mm-hmm.
you could still plug it into a normal Genesis, which was like a fun bonus. But yeah, an HDMI out and action replay cartridge, so I can play the imports. So it's a bit of an investment just to even get it started, you know.
Wait, so the Saturn has the same controller port as the Mega Drive?
It has its own port, but this controller
Oh.
has two inputs on it. It branches off at the end.
And one of those is the Mega Drive one,
Yes, that's right.
because that's the same port as the Atari 2600. Because you can use a Mega Drive controller on the Atari. Just another
Then
reason
maybe
why
that'll
that
work.
system is S tier.
What?
Maybe
you not
that'll
know
work
that?
then.
What? I did not know that.
I used to play Pac-Man with a Mega Drive controller on the Atari. It was very good. It completely changed my life. Yeah, it's
That almost seems like cheating in an Atari game.
it's brilliant for anything apart from something where you should use a paddle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there you go. You could use an Atari controller on it then.
Yeah, I love the Saturn in its own weird way. It's the only system that I haven't like properly played of the. It's only like the bigger just 5th gen systems that I haven't properly played. But I've always really wanted to play it. In the last few years, I've been on the search for a Saturn at a good price, but haven't really come across one quite yet.
Good luck.
I double checked my sticker. I kept the Goodwill sticker on it. I paid $14.99.
$14.99 still.
I'm not
like,
taking the sticker off because that's like
I'd leave that on there. Oh, I didn't tell you guys. I might cut this out of this video, but the N64 I just bought, this blew my mind, and I love it, and I know you two will both love this. When I opened it up, the original owner kept an envelope in there of every single game he bought for the N64 with the receipts. And so I've got a receipt for every single game the guy bought from his N64. And like where he paid like $4.53 for Mario Kart. Like Like
That's pretty cool.
That just broke my
that's cool.
brain.
I just
Mario
think
Kart
that's cool.
64.
Yeah. Yeah.
Receipts are very cool.
Wow.
Receipts are some of my favorite. I find receipts from like CX or whatever all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what did I buy this day? And I remember what I bought, and then I remember what I did that day. Maybe I went to McDonald's. I almost always went to McDonald's, to be honest with you. If there's a game shop nearby, there's almost definitely a McDonald's there.
That's awesome.
So I don't know how many of you actually do keep your receipts, but if I am buying, especially original Xbox games, I put them to the side, and so I find them everywhere. I find them out in the pool shed sometimes. I find them in my room, but like it's so fun just to go back and look, and you see who's on the till. You remember, oh yeah, she was flirting with me quite hard. She loved it. Like, oh, Hello Kitty Roller Rescue. She loved that one. So,
I'll save receipts if I find them in games, but yeah, no, I just that honestly that made my day when I was looking through all those, because there's like a stack of like 25 receipts. So it was just cool. I'll show you guys after this video or something if you're up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Definitely.
but I was talking about the Saturn. That was a trail off. Oh my.
Meant to say Saturn switched up the pattern.
Yeah, it's a console I love, but I don't really have much experience with, and I really want to have experience with it, but I just don't, and that makes me sad. But,
dude, it's tough. Like I said, it took me a while.
Basically, same, and I have the system. I feel the same way. Like I wish I had more. That's the thing about the Saturn is it feels like the girl next door. There's nothing to hate, and there's so much to love, but I'm never going to make the move. You know, that's kind of the relationship I have with the Saturn.
That's why I think it, in my personal opinion, I think it's all right in B tier, because it does have its problems, at least in the Western releases. Because like you had said, people were importing games because we just did not have the releases.
Most of them are in Japan.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of games for the Saturn. They're just all in Japan,
and it's tough to get into now.
It's expensive as could be.
It's like it's a gatekeep.
Yeah, I think B is very fair. A quick question, Joe. Well, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have it, but I guess this is more of a statement. There's like a UK, like a PAL release game that that we didn't get over here that I wanted to check out called Deep Fear. Have you heard of that one?
No, for what?
On the Sega Saturn.
Oh no idea.
Deep Fear is this Resident Evil like survival horror game that looks like it takes place on a submarine or like a ship or something like that.
Oh, I kind of want that. Oh wait there, 1 second. Hold on. I'm searching this really quickly.
I gotta check it out sometime, because from what little I've seen, it has the type of, you know, acting, like voice acting in it, where it's so bad it's good.
Wait, so it's a UK game then? Do they have like UK dialogue, or is it?
You know, I'd have to hear the characters.
Oh
talk,
no, it seems Japanese. Why did we get it? Oh, this looks so cool. Oh my god.
It looks cool.
This is why I love the sound, because it's also it feels like I don't know any of the games, but they all look kind of cool.
That's how it's gonna be for me for a while, especially because most of them are in Japanese. Not very accessible.
Very expensive. Or both. Probably both.
All right, B. I'm very that's very fair to the Saturn.
I just want to say right now, I feel like we're doing this quite well. B is like solid systems that I'd be absolutely pleasantly amused with for the rest of my life if necessary.
And I think that's what B should be. It's like middle of the road system, not the best, but nothing bad. Like
you're gonna have a lot of fun, I reckon, with any of those. Okay, right.
All right.
PlayStation 1.
PS1, the PlayStation 1. I personal bias makes me want to put this in A. Very much, but I don't. Part of me wants to say B at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like you're wrong wherever you put it. Really, it's a weird one for me to place because it was the first system I ever played.
It has great games. It has a huge library for the time. It was a good price for what it was released. Like, I mean, there was the whole $2.99 thing against the Saturn itself.
Epic.
It was that big drop the mic moment from
That was
Sony.
the first Epic Gamer moment. I'm
Yeah,
convinced.
no, I mean it really was. It really was. It's, but I don't know where to put it because, 100% honest, as much as I absolutely love the fifth generation, I don't know how much of that generation actually holds up well.
Yeah, I feel like of the three, it feels like the N64 feels almost most contemporary, and it's the weirdest looking one of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
But with the PS1, my opinions on it are pretty similar to my opinions on the PS2 in that it had so many games, it covered so much that there is definitely something on there for you. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a cheat because it has so many games for it, and I feel like because of that, there is that something for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely has its own list of those like games people remember so fondly, like the Oddworld games, Metal Gear Solid.
Absolutely, man. I mean, there's a couple masterpieces in there, man.
Exactly,
Metal Gear.
like it has these games that 25 years later people are claiming to be epic. Final Fantasy VII, for example, getting
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
these remakes and these new takes on these games. And I feel like the PS1 definitely has its place in history, and those level of iconic games. And in my opinion, the level of iconic game is better than everything else in B.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, the Game Boy you could argue. So it's either the very high B or A.
Mm-hmm.
And when you actually look at all of these legendary games, and a controller which, with the analog sticks, was pretty revolutionary controller. Basically, did in many ways change. I mean, you could argue like Xbox more so, but it did have that form factor of it. It did so much.
It was the first
As,
dual analog one, I believe.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Ape
Um,
Escape was crazy to control with that
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
it had CD capability, so it was really the beginning of media integration into game consoles.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that feature back in the day. I used it quite a lot. It feels like, as weird as they are, licensed games, like licensed platformers, stuff like the Stuart Little game.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Toy Story 2, I believe, was really good.
Toy Story 2 is legit.
Yeah.
Donald Duck Quack Attack, or as you had it, Going Quackers.
Yeah.
Just not necessarily the best games, but really true, vibrant. Not quite realistic to the film, but close enough. It wasn't quite Shrek on the original Xbox. We will get there. We will get there. But it was colourful enough to be able to kind of draw you in. And I think, being someone who was a kid when playing games like Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase or Croc Legend of the Gobbos, these really atmospheric games, maybe that is a bias, but I love it, and I think that there is all cause for it to be an A, and I'm for A personally because I just feel like it is a step above everything else in B, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd argue it could be on par with the Mega Drive, but it's, as I said, difficult for me because not as personally connected with the Mega Drive, but I feel like it stands up there with it 100%.
Yeah, and say like I 100% believe it should be an A, but I'm not. It's one of those consoles where like I know my personal opinion of the console, I would put it in A, extremely easy, no second thoughts on it. But that's again coming from a situation of this is the first console that I really genuinely got into video games. I was at an age finally that I could understand what was going on. I could actually like figure games out. Has some of my favorite games ever, like the Spyro trilogy on the PS1 are some of my favorite games.
Yeah.
I go back and play them pretty much every year. But like at the same time, I could see people arguing for putting it in a B at the very least, because like I had said before, a lot of games from this generation just do not hold up at all. And that's coming from the fact that everybody was trying to figure out what 3D was.
Yeah.
So I can't really hold that completely against them, but it still doesn't change the fact that not a whole lot holds up. And I know they didn't, but I really wish they did more with 2D in this generation. Because same with the Saturn, like, I know that's what the Saturn was originally made for, like, that was their main idea of it. But if they had just done more 2D also, like Castlevania, Symphony of the Night,
Oh
they
my
had
gosh.
the Lion King
Masterpiece.
games, there was a Hercules game, like, even just those were crazy.
Klonoa was pretty good.
Yeah, Klonoa was great. Like,
Tamba.
I really just wish they had done more 2D also. But I'm 100% down for A.
Yeah, I am with A as well.
You kind of brought up that whole the way it aged, but it's so difficult to kind of detect. Like, I know what you mean, but yeah, it's A, surely, is it not? I feel like going back to a system, going back to a system that old, there's going to be growing pains, but if you get past it, there's an A tier system there still.
And do you have any? Joe and I both gave our long-winded personal experiences.
Oh,
with the
that's
PS1.
okay. I've been doing it plenty with others. Like, I kind of just gushed about Saturn for a little while. It's a fair balance when you do that every now and then, you know. No, I'm in agreement that it's A. I look at the stuff in B, and I think of, like, come on, Crash 4 finally just came out after all these years.
It's about time.
Like the fans for that. Yeah. All these fans that have been there since Crash 1 on this system, man. They're like supporting it. I think of like that, and
hopefully next year we'll be getting Spyro 4. Yeah, no. So A system. That's what we all agree on. Awesome.
Cool, sweet.
Up next, Sega Nomad. It's
hey, they took the Sega and made it portable.
Yeah. It was the first Switch.
It's the first. Well,
I mean, not in the same way.
The turbo graphics. I'm trying to think what.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking about the turbo graphics. Like, did it have a system where you were able to play its consoles games on the go, or am I thinking of something else?
Because you could be right, but
you might be right.
Because Sega Nomad is a system that is able to play normal Sega games, but I don't think it was the first.
And you can use a second controller for it and stuff. So
it can hook up to the TV, and you can play your Sega Genesis games through it on your TV, or you can walk away with it and play your Sega Genesis games portably. And yeah, you could hook a controller into the bottom of it and use that as your main controller, or have somebody who is playing as player 2, that would be their controller.
Okay. So it's got all these, a bit like the Switch, that it's got all these kind of different ways to play it. I'll say this, is that I basically don't care about this whatsoever. I think console gaming is always better than handheld gaming. And the need to push to get a home console portable was potentially ahead of its time now with the Switch. But even still, I can't imagine myself being too enthralled by something like that. It'd be cool, but I mean, I don't know how the battery is or whatever, but I'm taking it as a portable Mega Drive, which could be cool, but at the same time, I don't think I'd really be too into it. It just, I don't know.
I agree. It's a big, chunky thing that it'd be awkward to carry around. So yes, it is portable, but like, I mean, people complain about how big the Switch is on its own, yet alone like this thing plus all the full-size Genesis cartridges you'd have to carry around and have them sticking out of the top of this thing. All for it. I believe that it also only had like a 3-hour battery life.
Yeah. And like, these aren't original games, right? Like, I'm not that familiar, but like, is this thing just to play Sega cards?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all it did.
To be honest with you, I've always considered this part of the Mega Drive family in a weird way. I've never really thought of it to rank it on its own. And when I come to it, now I realize it's not really it is a portable Mega Drive. But again, it has that same library, so you could argue that it's this great system or whatever. But like it's extension of the Mega Drive. The Mega Drive is a good system. If this is on its own, I don't think it holds up, or like it can't stand on its own, in my opinion. I've no interest.
Yeah, Sega seemed to like tout it as its own thing, but that is kind of how I see it. Also, is it's a Genesis Nomad. It's not a Sega Nomad to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think it's a terrible system. I think it should be in like the C tier, or maybe high D.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like shit though.
Yeah, I mean, again, C is those inoffensive.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know. Kind of lukewarm, could be okay.
When Joe puts it that way, then I would say C, but I was ready to dunk it to the top of D. Because I mean, this thing doesn't have even have original games.
Yeah, no, that's why I was like, I think I'm leaning more towards like the top of D.
I think I am too.
You good with that, Joe? Or
no, I'm okay for that. Yeah.
okay.
I think it's ludicrous that Telstar is above above it, but I'm okay. I suppose it kind of makes sense.
Well, I mean, if we already have the Genesis way up there, so you can play everything right there at home.
No, I agree.
And a better screen. Again,
I've always psychologically associated it as a Mega Drive. It's very weird. When I actually put it by itself, I've got no, like, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It's not that interesting.
All right, the next one. Let's see how this one goes. N64.
Oh man, I love this console so much.
Okay.
Okay.
I think a lot better than that.
I think this is one of the situations that kind of shows off. I'd kind of spoken about it earlier, I believe, when we were talking about one of the other consoles, about how looking at it, it was the NES to SNES, about looking at it from the future standpoint on how people view it afterwards, because obviously during the time the PS1 was a lot more popular. Everybody wanted the PlayStation. Everybody was pushing for the PlayStation. But nowadays, everybody talks about the N64. The PlayStation's second. Everybody wants to talk about the games from the N64, the controller from N64.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is... The N64 is the more sought-after console between the two nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's more probably per game, probably more consistent a system. I agree. There's something about the N64. However, the controller is horrific.
Yeah, you have to bring up the controller when you talk about this.
I can't not mention the controller. If the controller was like those Hori pads that were done afterwards, or even a kind of more simplified GameCube or something, if it was like, if it worked and wouldn't break after a certain while, it wasn't literally wearing itself down, which seems to be a theme of those controllers over the years. But it's in a lineage of controllers, which, okay, up until that point were good, but then have been, I think, fair to say, rocky over the years. This really stands out as the absolute worst controller decision that's been made. And if the Hori gamepad or whatever new gamepads you can use for the system count, then I could see this system being an A tier. But if I kind of vet the system a bit harder and I say, no, we've got to give it with its original controller, that original controller can turn me off sometimes to maybe feel like it's a C. I hate using it. I don't want to use it. And it really, and I know that the system is all about its games, and if it really is, then this is an A tier system easily, but like, that's just horrific controller. I don't think it's probably my least favorite controller in gaming history. I hate it, and it makes the games worse, a lot worse. And there are a lot of cool, unique games. Pokemon Snap is one of my favorite games ever, just in its simplicity, and that's quite easy to use. But even still, yeah, I don't know. It's the controller is a big, like, tiebreak. I don't know where it goes either way.
Okay.
See, I will say I think the controller should be a big part of ranking these consoles, and I think we should rank them on their original merit, not necessarily what you can get in the aftermarket. If it was like a system where the aftermarket was the biggest part of the system, then yeah, you could bring that up. But in the case of this, I almost bought a Brawler 64 last weekend when I bought that thing, just because I did not, I still don't want to use that controller. I don't have as big of a distaste for it, I think, as Joe, because I'll kind of deal with it. I don't like the controller, but I'll deal with it, kind of thing. And what I do like though is that the nunchuck for the Wii is pretty much the center part of the N64 controller.
That's the best part of the controller as well. It's it feels a bit like a Wii nunchuck.
Yeah.
Gotta trick yourself into thinking it's all right.
All right, Dan, I'll let you talk because I know you got
stand out amazing first party games in here that are certainly a cut above many things sitting here right now. I get people's general distaste for the controller. I like the thing. I don't like the fact that it breaks down either. There's some way in, I would say, for third party stuff, because we did talk about, just as a talking point, of people taking care of these games and making new games for these systems.
I agree. That's how I feel. That's how I feel, yeah.
Yeah. And there's certainly plenty of love with that for the Nintendo 64. I love playing like Ocarina of Time Randomizer. And there's like a whole big community of people like racing that together.
That's like Mario 64 as well, like the speedrunning community for that. Like there are games on here that are on that level. Like I still play this to this day.
Yeah. Now,
go ahead.
A bunch of these games, they're first party stuff, and I also got to say there isn't like a ton of third party things on here that are huge and stand out. Most of it is first party Nintendo. I mean, this is when Rareware was like amazing and was putting out stuff like you know what? I love Banjo-Kazooie a lot.
Rareware is such a great developer, especially at the time that they made a game that eats its own memory and leaks it.
Yeah.
To the point where you have to have an memory expansion pack to play the game. And I'm pretty sure like if you leave that game running for a certain amount of time, it still like eats through all the memory of the expansion pack.
Yeah, I think it might. But gosh dang it, I love this thing. I have just about every game that I would want for it in my library. Maybe like 2 or 3 more. But that's still pretty sizable. Like, oh my gosh, Smash Brothers was life-changing. It was like just even Smash was just life-changing. Like all these characters were already know and loved all in one game together. That hadn't really happened. Not quite like that.
You see, I'm at a weird position with the N64 because I personally prefer the PlayStation 1, and that 100% comes from my Sony bias. And the fact that I played it more as a kid. I played with the N64 as a kid because I had friends and family who had it, and I did enjoy the console. But I grew up with the PlayStation 1 and continued playing PlayStation 1 games throughout up till through the PS3 because they were still backwards compatible. Whereas once the N64 kind of went through its paces, I didn't touch it after that. So I didn't. I kind of look at it now with like a slight nostalgic goggles, I guess, but I don't look at it in the same way as like I do the PS1. I think it's a great console, and I think it deserves A tier. Like it doesn't deserve to be under A tier, but it is like the controller. I dislike the controller quite a bit.
Yeah, I get that, but is the controller enough to drag it down from A really?
I don't think so, and that's why I think it should still be an A tier. Especially like I had brought up at the beginning, this is the console that's seen higher than the PlayStation at this point. At this time in the world, 2020, the N64 is the bigger console. Whether it didn't sell that much back then in comparison, but Go
I
ahead, Joe.
just love going back to this thing, man.
I I know what you mean, and I will say, in its defense, for a system jumping to 3D, the amount of game series that it took to 3D, but not only did that, but made not only a good game, but a great and iconic and arguably the best games of their respective series. Mario 64, the Zelda games on their Star Fox, which it was probably 3D
Oh
before,
yeah.
but like it and then Mario Kart as well. It's maybe a little ropey by today's standards,
Man,
but
4 players. 4 players.
exactly. I didn't notice when I was playing it when I was younger. I didn't notice those things, and maybe it. I think it has so much going for it that it could be S, but there's no way it's S because of the controller. In my opinion, no way whatsoever. Um, and yeah, you can throw it at, A if you want, but I feel like it's a B, but I can't really argue against an A just because of those games.
I think of the systems in the fifth generation, it definitely did the best with holding up over time for its games. Like,
Agreed, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I,
I'm
I,
I'm
I don't know what it is about N64 games, but whenever I see it, I know it's N64 and there's a charm to it.
mm-hmm.
I know the PS1 had like all those weird warpings and bendings, which look cool in its own right, and you know it's PS1. But there is something about the blockiness of the N64, but it feels like a perfect, clean blockiness. It has that Nintendo polish to polygons. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but as I said, aesthetically, it's brilliant to this day. Gameplay wise as well, I still feel like Mario 64, for example, still plays really, really well.
Oh yeah.
Like that made 3D gaming really. So yeah,
Yeah.
A.
Oh yeah, and Mario 64 is the genuinely the best of the platformers, and it's crazy to think that it was the first one to come out for that system. Of all the platformers in that generation, at least, it is the best.
And it still might be.
Yeah, and you could still argue that it is still the best.
And fair.
So, A tier it is. On to the next one, which I'm sure we'll argue about too. Game Boy Color.
I will say that this was the Game Boy that I had first. And I had a few exclusives. I had a few of those games that were kind of like Game Boy Color games that are enhanced, but still played on the Game Boy original one. But Power Quest is a Game Boy Color game, and that is one of my favorite games ever. I didn't have many Game Boy Color games, but Power Quest was one. WrestleMania 2000. I'm pretty sure that was the one. Probably one of my favorite wrestling games ever. A very basic wrestling game, but I would take it into school right the way up till I was like 16 or 17. I was obsessed with the Game Boy Color and its simplicity and its brilliance, and I would take it on school trips, like even into my teenage years, because I knew that I just took those batteries and the thing was going to last. And I would take a handful of games and I'd be sat on the bus trying to find the light, and kids would be like, "Oh, what is that?" Teachers would be like, "Oh, I used to have one of those." And I was just there playing Power Quest and I was sharing it about, and I have so many good memories of that years after the system's heyday, of people like crowding around on a school bus on a trip in geography to the Snowdonia Mountains, and I have these vivid memories of playing the game there and playing it on pretty much every holiday that I ever went on. It was always my go-to for whatever reason. Even years after, when I got improved systems like the GBA and the DS, I eventually would move on to the Game Boy Advance, because why wouldn't you? To be honest, like it's just better. But I have a huge fondness for the system, and I think it's what the Game Boy really should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Game Boy Color is what the Game Boy should have launched as originally, in my opinion. Like that's what it should have been. And yeah, I think it deserves an A tier, because once the Game Boy Color came out, if you were able to get your hands on the color, there's absolutely no reason to go back to the original Game Boy.
True, but kind of for that same reason that I want to keep it in B, just because it improved. The Game Boy is in B for that library, that brilliant library, and the Game Boy improved on that library. It did, and it made older games look better, and then there was cross-compatible games, as I mentioned. But I still think hold it in B because handheld gaming isn't as good as console gaming, and that is going to be a theme throughout.
Well, I'm okay
so
with B because I still think the Game Boy Advanced is better.
Yeah, I agree. That's basically what I'm saving it for, and I don't think Game Boy Advance is an S tier system. I think it's probably an A. I do think it's a step above though, for sure. And that's why I want to put it back. It's still good. It was a step up. I'm not saying it was on the exact same level as the original Game Boy, as in it didn't do anything. I mean, it did loads of things, but going back and looking at it all in its place in history, it did it as well as the original Game Boy, in my opinion. But also, I'm chatting complete waffle because I love it so much and have those warm memories. It's one of the warmest memory systems I have. Like my first own console. That's what that is for me. That's probably why I love it so much.
What about you, Dan?
I'm a big Nintendo guy, and the color is something. I hate saying this after Joe going off. It is something I have a lower opinion of on the Nintendo side of things. But I look at the way things are here with this tier list, and I'm pretty comfortable with it in B. I was out of Pokemon for a really long time. I did Gen 1, and then Gold and Silver came out, and they're like, "Oh, look, we found a cave, and there's 100 more." After I caught all 151, including winning Mew from a contest from Nintendo, I was mad that there was over 100 more after that. And I dropped it.
Mate, I've got some news for you. Right,
yeah, I know. So I was out of Pokemon for a really long time, and so that might have kept me into the colors kind of like ecosystem a little bit more. But there weren't really a lot of color specific games that I was like, I don't have a lot of color games. I go back and look at my stuff. I only have a few, and it's probably like the smallest, console specific library thing that I personally have.
Well, I mean, there wasn't really a huge amount of color specific games in general, but it's one of those consoles where the only reason that it's on here on this list as its own thing is because Nintendo says it's a separate console. Otherwise, I would 100% say it's just another Game Boy. Just with it happens to have a colored screen, and it was a better Game Boy.
Exactly, and that's what it was. The Game Boy was amazing, and then this came on and said, we're going to do everything that did, but a little bit better, and there's going to be some more games. Not masses. You could argue, was it a reason then to get it? Was all of that actually worth it for the upgrade?
Well, I think the fact that it upgrades, it makes all of the games from your original Game Boy have at least some form of color. They look better.
And you know what? I was getting that with the Super Game Boy attachment on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, true. And that predates the color, right? The color's what, like 99, 2000?
99, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, okay, it definitely does then. It's a tough one to place because my heart says one thing, but my brain, I don't know. Yeah, B. I'm happy B is the better one.
You good with B2, Dan?
It's crazy to see it sitting right next to the Saturn like that.
Well, I was gonna move it up in front of the original, so that it's
because
I mean it is a better original Game Boy.
It's just a better Game Boy.